Hey, Ken, welcome to the podcast.
Casey, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Man, I'm so excited to have you here. I got to know you a little one-on-one out at the Front Row Dads Retreat this year.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we got a great guy here that's got all types of different ways that we could have an amazing conversation and so much to offer. And you offered so much to the group while we were out there as well that I just couldn't wait to have you share your message and all these different ideas that you have with our audience. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this and honored to be a part of a group like Front Row Dads and happy that that was able to connect us together.
Oh yeah, and I met so many cool people through that, and a lot of the individuals as part of that group, they've just, they've had so much depth in their life experiences, and you are no exception. And going through your bio, I don't need to go through your entire bio here because I'll go through a lot of that bio stuff when we go back and put an intro on the episode. But the bio's wide ranging. You've had a lot of different experiences, a lot of ups and downs. You've had, you might say, some drastic changes, some drastic life stages that you've went through. You might say traumatic at times. But when we talk about life stages, I think it's interesting to see how different people view different life stages. So how would you view the different life stages that you've went through up until this point, or how do you view the life cycle?
Oh my goodness. Jimmy Buffett has a great line. Some of it's magic, some of it's tragic, but I've had a good life all the way. One of his songs there. The life cycles, it's all part of our journey in who we are and in who we become. So for the tough times I've had, I'm thankful. For the great times I've had, I'm grateful. And something I try to teach my children is that you may think you got it all figured out, or you may have no clue what you're going to do. And guess what? It doesn't matter, because you're going to go through so many different parts of your life that are going to be vastly different than what you ever thought they would be. And it's cool because we evolve and things happen in our lives. It's rare that someone is just super consistent throughout their entire life with what they're doing or what they're involved in. We're an evolutionary creature, and it's a beautiful thing.
And today you're in a very different spot than you were just a few years ago. Quite a dramatic change. I think that our audience can learn something from that. Can you tell us, what the last, say, decade has looked like for you and where you're at today?
Yeah, so I'll start back just a little over a decade. So I'm in the real estate business today. It's my primary business. We've got a few others. We can talk about that too. But prior to the real estate business, I had started my entrepreneurial journey and opened up a pizza restaurant. This is my first deal. I had been in the Navy prior, and my good buddy of mine from the Navy and I decided that we were going to, in essence, franchise this pizza concept, although it was a small family-owned chain, so they didn't have a full franchise. We licensed the name and the recipes to go open up our own version of it. And we thought our plan was to go open up 5 of these locations, to be successful, open up 5, and then to really systematize the business and create a franchise model and help the family to go franchise the entire model. The best laid plans don't always work. We thought, because the existing location, there were 3 existing locations, and they were run really poorly. Really, we had observed so many ways that it was being run that we thought we were going to come in and just to dramatically change everything. And then we made a really, really crucial mistake. And it's interesting, since I've been in the real estate business for almost 20 years now, that big mistake was a real estate mistake. And we ended up falling in love with a location. The landlord wouldn't subdivide the location, and we ended up leasing probably more than double the amount of space that we needed. And that single decision caused, not only higher rent, higher electricity, higher all utilities, more furniture than we needed, more employees, more equipment, more everything, right? And so everything was doubled or tripled what it should have been as far as an expense burn rate goes. And 18 months after we opened that business, we ended up having to shut it down. And that was a hard decision for us. We had employees that were relying on us, and the employees have become like family for us, really. I I actually had family members working for me at the time. And then the other employees were like family to us. And we had a big burden on our shoulders that we had so much debt that we had amassed during that time, even though our sales picked up month over month over month. I mean, if you looked at a trend line of sales, you're like, these guys are doing great. But our expenses had started so much higher than that. Initially, we didn't see a way out. And so we ended up shutting down that business 18 months later and filed business and personal bankruptcy protection. And that was a miserable low point in our lives. We felt like we had, my partner and I felt like we let each other down, let our employees down, let our families down. And it was,
and that was just 2012, right?
No. This was 2001. Okay. So this is a little earlier than that. This is 2001. Then I got in the real estate business in 2002, and then started to kind of to build my real estate career up. And it was a journey in the real estate business. It took me almost an entire year to make $1 in the business, and I was in the commercial real estate world, so it's a longer life cycle. It's a longer learning cycle to figure things out. And I went to work for a guy who was very transparent with me. He told me, he said, it'll probably take you a year to make any money. We don't have a formal training program. We don't have a draw. We don't have a salary. So you're not going to make any money. You're going to kind of come in and do the work, and eventually you'll make some money. And he's like, but we won't pigeonhole you into any particular asset class. You can kind of do what you want to do. We can learn from us, and you can make a great career if you kind of do it right. And somehow that sounded good to me. And I said, okay, sign me up. And it was pretty true to what he said. It was 11 months later when I made my first check. And I think it was $1,837 is what I made my first check 11 months later. And so luckily we had socked away a little bit of money to live on that year. And my wife was working. So that was helpful. And we kind of scrunched by. I made $1,837 at month 11. At month 12, I made my first $20,000 commission check. So, when you look at the first year combined, I made about as much as a substitute teacher. So that for that first year in the real estate business. But the next year I'd made six figures, and the next year we did better. And it started to grow from there. So it started our my real estate career from there. In the early 2000s right there. And that went great until, late 2008. If you recall that, in probably July 2008, the commercial real estate markets froze. Residential markets had started tanking a year before. Commercial markets, the lending markets froze in about July of 2008. And everything I had working just dried up overnight. And that was a tough thing because prior to that, those couple years prior, making great money. My wife at the time was making great money. We were living high in the hog. We built this big house, and we really overextended ourselves, and almost found myself back in that bankruptcy situation again. And we didn't. We ended up short selling our house. Ended up getting divorced. It was another real low point in my life. At that point in that 2008, 2009, it was another start over. We had making good money at the time, but man, we just let our expenses get so out of control. It was not at all the place that I wanted to be. And so we kind of did a reset and restart in 2009, and then just started kind of slowly rebuilding the commercial real estate kind of business. Where you're kind of, I think, referring to in 2012. So in late 2009, I joined KW, Keller Williams, as affiliated my real estate business with KW. And in 2010, I heard Gary Keller up on stage talk about this concept of a big why. And the big why concept he's referring to is purpose, having a purpose in your life. And, oddly enough, that was the first time I had ever heard about this concept of living life with a purpose. I'd just been kind of bouncing through life, chasing whatever thoughts or dreams I had at the moment, but with nothing kind of grounding me and no real purpose right there. And it hit me hard when I heard that, because I heard it loud and clear. And I looked inside and I said, what is your purpose? I had two kids, two beautiful, wonderful children. I kind of knew they had something to do with my purpose, but I didn't know what that purpose was. And I really soul searched for about 2 years. And it was 2012 when I kind of realized what my purpose was, and kind of defined that. And when that finally happened, my life just got measurably better as far as is when I realized my purpose and it came to me, what I meant to do, what I meant to be. Everything started changing in my life. And so for me, that purpose, it's to be the best possible example I can, for my wife, for my children, and for others who may look to me for inspiration. I've realized that there's a lot of people looking at us in this world, and sometimes you never know who's watching. And I want to be the best possible I can, best possible example I can for all of those people, and in all areas of my life, whether it's love and relationships, spirituality, business, personal finance, health, fitness, adventure, all of those aspects. I want to be the best version of me that I can be, so that anyone else looking and observing my life can maybe use me being my best version as an inspiration for their own life. And when I figured that out, everything started to slowly change. And I'll tell you, those words were aspirational at first, right? I was not living that best version of myself when I defined that, but it became my compass, right? It became my true north. That's where I was going. And since that time in 2012, so much has changed and so much has lined up. Oddly enough, at that time, I weighed in at some of the heaviest I've ever weighed in my life. I was on over 200 pounds, probably almost 210 pounds at that time. Was in debt again, or I hadn't gotten out of debt since that downturn right there. So I was still in debt. I had a lot of business debt. And I was just in a place where I needed to get my life in order and get my life much better. And I went on a journey, and I went on a 2-year journey. I'd committed to, get in shape, lose that weight, get out of debt, and build my business to a point that it could provide a great financial future for me. In 2 years' time, we paid off $352,000 of debt. In exactly 24 months to the day, went through the Dave Ramsey kind of plan, followed his plan, paid off $252,000 in debt. I dropped 50 pounds of weight in that 2 years, and we scaled our business. We were doing about a little under 20 million in annual sales volume. We scaled it to over 70 million in sales volume, which is what helped pay off that $352,000 in debt in 24 months, right? That's a short time frame in people's lives.
It's a heck of a debt snowball right there.
It's a heck of a debt snowball. And here's the crazy thing. Like, we followed his plan to the T. We listed our debts out. I put them on a spreadsheet. I printed it out. I put it on a refrigerator. All the world could see, if you came into our home, these are our debts. And we crossed off each one. We paid it off. And it was an absolutely phenomenal experience to pay off that last debt and to become debt free. And our children lived with us through that whole example. And it was really, really cool that they were to go through it and to experience it and to understand where our sacrifices were coming from, and to sacrifice with us. So great learning experience for the kids.
Boy, I mean, there's so much to unpack right there that I don't even know exactly where to go, but I think I want to provide people some context, because I think sometimes we get this idea of individuals that file for bankruptcy. Well, they're just idiots. We're not talking to someone that, is not capable or not intelligent. I mean, I think, you went to a pretty prestigious military academy, graduated at 16, valedictorian. I mean, we've got someone that's pretty sharp. However, you still went down that bankruptcy road and almost went down that road twice.
Yeah.
And do you think that it could have been avoided? And what would have been the keys to avoiding that experience of bankruptcy? What would you say to somebody else that's maybe going through it?
Yeah, as I've looked back and dissected and reevaluated my life at different points, back then, there was a lot of hubris in my life, right? I thought I knew a lot more than I really knew. Like today, I feel like I know nothing. I feel like
Maybe being valedictorian was a dangerous thing.
I think there is some danger to that, and danger to feeling you're an intelligent person. And like again, today I feel like I know nothing. There's so much that I don't know in this world.
You're humbled.
I recognize that. Back then, I thought I had so much figured out. Like I said, I thought we could run the business much better than the people that had done it successfully for years. We thought we didn't need your advice on this. We didn't need your advice on this. And so my advice to someone would be, you know what, seek the advice and mentorship of people that have succeeded before you, and really ask and really dig in and listen to what they say. I've had a lot of advice in the past where I've heard it, I didn't listen to it, and I didn't follow it. And I think had I listened to wiser people who had gone before me in the past, I could have made a lot fewer mistakes in my life. But
didn't necessarily, maybe you didn't recognize, it sounds like, the level of risk you were actually taking at the time, but having a good mentor maybe could have put that into a context or a way that you could understand.
Could have helped a lot, right? A mentor, someone that was there for me and that I trusted and that I took their advice. Because, as a mentor to people these days, I help mentor quite a few people, and some folks do great at taking advice and heeding advice, and others are where I was years ago. And I say, hey, thanks for that advice. I'll talk to you later. Maybe it works out for them. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, I've met people that are at this point where they go, should I file for bankruptcy? Shouldn't I file for bankruptcy? I hear that it's the worst thing I could possibly do for my financial life. I just need to stick it out and figure it out on my own. How did you know it was time to file bankruptcy? Would you do it again? How would someone recognize if they should do it or not?
That's a great question. And I think the answer today, I would try to avoid it at all costs if it was me. It was interesting. I heard a podcast of Susie. I can't think of her last name, but she created Poo-Pourri. And she had filed bankruptcy 3 times in her life. 3 times. And someone asked her a similar question. That was like, what would your advice be for someone? She's like, don't do it. She's like, there are ways.
But then you look at these people that have done it and you go, boy, it worked out so well for them. Now they're worth multi-millions.
Sometimes and sometimes the beauty and reason bankruptcy was created, right? So the beauty of it is it truly eliminates your debts right there. And it does kill your credit. So you're looking at a 7 to 10 year time period where you're looked upon as a leper in the financial community, right? And so it does kill your credit. And we lived, I lived in an apartment for years after, I'd kind of gone down financial ruin. I'd really shrunk down my life there. But so it hurts your credit. It hurts it hurt my self-image, I think, a lot right there. But at the same time, I've recovered from it. I've recovered well from it. I've learned a lot through the experience right there. So if someone has to do it, and kind of question on how would you know whether, I felt buried. There was, we had several $100,000 in debt and look, very different. When I paid off the $352,000 in debt, I had a method to go. I was in a sales business and I knew that I could increase my sales, increase my revenue. So I love the sales business. I can go pay off that debt. And I did it in 2 years.
So you had a plan this second time around. When you got close the second time around, you sat down, you said, I've got a plan to get out of this situation. And prior, you didn't have a plan and there maybe wasn't a way out?
I didn't see a way out. Let's say that. I was, I had my business that was failing. I had no other business, no other revenue, no other skill set that I felt like I could go create money with, right? Today, I have a lot of different skill sets where I feel like I can go create money. Back then I didn't, and I didn't have the confidence in myself. And so I felt lost. I felt there was no other way out. And so it was a hard decision for us to make.
And sometimes I'll meet people that are pre-retired. They're 10 years out from retirement and they're going, I think I'm going to have to file for bankruptcy. And you made such a quick recovery. I mean, it appears that way from,
Yep.
say, 2000. Really, it sounds like you made that recovery in 10 years,
Yes.
roughly.
Oh, sure. By 2010, we were doing quite well.
What would you say to someone that's, say 10 years out from retirement? Can they still make it? And what steps should they take to make sure that once they file for bankruptcy, they're still going to get out alive?
Um, truly making sure. Let me give you some advice on what not to do. I got some really great advice from some people before you file bankruptcy. It's like, hey, if you're going to file bankruptcy, just go charge a bunch of stuff. You may as well get stuff before you file. I kid you not. And at that stage of my life, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And guess what? There's a look back period where they can recognize that you're doing stuff like that. It doesn't get eliminated. So don't make any dumb mistakes like that, first of all, right? And if you're going to eliminate your debt, eliminate it, and then have a plan to get out. And like I mentioned, there's lots of things we can do in this world. If we can create value in this world for other people, things will happen in our lives, right? We will create value in our lives by creating value in others. I love the sales business. I love the ability to go help others in the real estate business because the more people we help, the more income we make. And we can use that income to build a new life for ourselves. And so I guess my best advice to anyone that finds himself in that situation and gets out of it is to get into a career which they can be compensated for the value they create rather than trading dollars for hours.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I had this question a while back. I mean, you are one of the few real estate investors I think I've ever met that's debt free. I mean, that real estate investing and debt free don't really go hand in hand. And for most, I know I had a question here recently from one of our fans, and they said, is debt always bad? Can debt be a good thing? You probably wouldn't be where you're at today if you didn't have that debt in order to create the real estate empire that you might say you have today with 21 different streams of income, 16 of those being passive income streams. What is your view of debt? Can we utilize debt and benefit from it?
Oh, sure. Now, for consumer debt, I can't stand it, right? So credit card debt, auto loans, that kind of stuff I can't stand. But for real estate debt, that's where Dave Ramsey and I disagree. And I know a lot of folks that disagree with him on that standpoint. He'd tell you buy everything in cash and say that's a super conservative plan. I love that, but it's a super slow plan. And so for real estate debt, if it's positive cash flow and you've got good tenancy in your buildings or easily re-tenantable buildings, I think real estate debt is very positive things. I wouldn't over leverage yourself, right? Don't go try to put 90 or 95% leverage on something right there. But if you're doing 70, 75% loan to value on something that you're not overpaying for, or you've got good tenancy and the tenants, in our business, the commercial side, the tenants aren't overpaying in rent. So if they go dark, you're not going to be able to replace that rent. If you've done your financial analysis on this, I think there's very much a place for debt in the real estate investment world. You wouldn't have much of the real estate investment that you have today if it weren't for the debt that goes into the mix.
So you're not necessarily completely debt-free. You've eliminated all your consumer debt, but you still carry debt on a lot of the real estate properties that you have out there. And so if we're going to go down that road, and I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent because there's some really cool things we have to get into, especially with the Legacy of Love app. But when you start talking about creating real estate investments, I mean, people are stepping into retirement and they're like, wow, 16 passive streams of income. I'd love to have that. Sounds like the perfect retirement strategy. How much debt is the appropriate amount of debt? Do you have a formula that you use or anything like that?
It's going to depend on the property. Honestly, it will depend on the property, the tenancy. And so, like when I have 16 streams of income, they're not all mine. I mean, I'm not the sponsor or the lead on all of those streams of income. I'm an investor in other people's projects that, they're the ones taking on the debt risk. They're the ones taking on the management, taking on the whole building of something. So if I trust in other people and what they're doing, I'll put our money into other people's assets. And so many of those streams are other people's assets that we put money into that provide cash flow for us.
Okay. Now, and so if a retiree says, boy, I want to create some of these passive income streams, is this something that you would carry into retirement, I suppose? And do you think you can continue to do what you're doing with all these different income streams throughout retirement? Or, you hear a lot of retirees going, it's just a headache dealing with this investor. I loaned this guy money. I got to collect from him and I got to manage all these different properties and all the headaches that go along with it. What are your thoughts when people say that?
I heard a great quote from a lady years ago. And because a friend had made a similar, she and her husband owned like 100 different rental properties and
Yeah.
residential rental properties, and they owned commercial properties and whatnot. And someone had made it almost the same kind of, it just sounds like a lot of headache and a lot of management, a lot of issues. And her kind of comment back was, I think going into retirement and not having any of that and being stuck on a fixed income is the headache, right? That for me is the problem. She goes, this provides limitless opportunity for me to be able to have these assets that we control, that yes, we have to manage them. Yes, we have to lease them. We've got to do this, but we control it, and it provides financial leverage in our life that allows us to go out and live the life of our dreams. And so I think, sure, it takes management. Sure, it takes work on some things, and it's worth it.
Well, how many different properties do you have that you're managing right now?
That we're personally managed, maybe six.
6 different rental properties, and these are commercial properties, correct?
Yeah, shopping centers and office buildings.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot of different tenants in there, I would imagine. So, what type of workload do you experience yourself from that?
Well, I mean, we're in the commercial real estate business, but if I wasn't doing leasing or that kind of stuff on my own, we would hire a leasing agent. We have property managers that manage our properties. So it's not a crazy big work. That's not a big part of how my time is spent is in managing or leasing our properties. It's actually a very small part of how my time is spent.
So is that what you'd recommend to somebody if they want to, they want a little bit more control than maybe they're getting on the stock market. They want to be able to maybe even utilize a property for their own enjoyment from time to time. They like the higher yield they're getting out of this real estate. Would you recommend they hire a leasing agent, hire a property manager? I know for myself right now, we just got ourselves our first vacation rental.
Yeah.
And it's something we're going to use as a family a couple weeks out of the year. But yeah, we're ending up going in net annually, maybe 7 to 10% after expenses, even with the property management company taking over and managing it. And then you still have the appreciation of the property itself. And boy, it's been hands off for the most part. I mean, once we get it up and running, there's little to no work that we actually have to do on an ongoing basis. And I think maybe we kind of have it twisted from other people who have said, well, property managers don't work and real estate's a headache and I don't want to manage a property in retirement. And I don't know where those things come from because it hasn't really been my experience.
I think for any person that's saying that, I can give you 3 that will say the opposite, right? They will give you 3 that will, and that's just the world I'm in, that will show you how it provides, 5 different levels of benefit and how it's providing financial freedom for them and how they're getting appreciation, as you mentioned. And I think, part of it comes in when you underwrite the deal initially before you purchase it. Make sure that you're building into your underwriting a property management fee, a leasing fee, and you're building those things in so that that's just part of your, when you go in and say, hey, my max dollar that I'm going to pay to buy this is X, those numbers are baked into that so that I think it's a really important factor.
Yeah, I think our property manager was just fantastic. He had already managed 150 properties of his own. I mean, he could do these really good projections to give us a good idea of what we were getting. I just think that's what a lot of us miss out on. We see a property, we like it, we think we can get a good rent, we just dive in, and then we figure it all out later. And that figuring out part, that's the headache that you've created for yourself.
Well, the first 2 properties I owned were 2 residential rentals, and I did the same thing. I was managing myself, and it was a big headache way back then. And now we hire property managers, hire leasing folks, have everyone else take care of it. And it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
We're just looking for deals and putting the deal structure together and making it happen.
Now you've got somewhat of a complex financial life, I might say. There's a lot of different real estate properties. You've got a lot of different businesses, entities, all these different income streams, different investments. Yeah, how do you keep all of that organized? Because I see a lot of individuals that'll come in, say, in those positions, and boy, they've got a stack of papers, they've got a briefcase full of stuff, they've got a couple spreadsheets that they're trying to manage, and for the most part, they're relatively confused on what they actually have and how they're going to be able to utilize it in retirement. And even more concerning many times as they progress through life is, what are my kids going to do when they get all this stuff?
Hmm. So I have a detailed spreadsheet that lists every single item I have on it, how much we put into the property, how much we make on an annual basis on it. If there's debt on the property, what that is. I've got one spreadsheet that lists it all, and what our active income is and what our passive income is. It line items, every single item in one master spreadsheet that shows it. Then I keep a pretty detailed file structure. Every property we have or every investment that we've made has its own file structure, and we've got all of the related documents in there. So as far as what are my kids going to do with those things? I love having real estate and kids around real estate all the time. My kids, I mean,
so they're integrated.
My son's 15, and then my other son is 3. And, for years I thought it was going in one ear and out the other, right? And then they'd make comments as we're driving around, like, "Hey, Dad, I think I may want to own a couple of these kind of properties when I go to college." And I'm like, "Well, tell me more." And we'd start talking about it. And their financial literacy is huge, but we talk about it all the time. My wife and I are both in the real estate business, and we're very transparent about, now we let them know that this is family matters, right? It's not you go share our finances or details with other people, but we're very transparent about what we own, what we struggle with, what's working, what's not. They hear the conversations nonstop. And like once a month, we'll sit down with a family and we'll look at all of the assets, because I want them now at this age to see, hey, here's what we own and here's how much we own. And then I'll shut up and listen. And what are they going to say? What are their questions? What are they thinking about? And it is a wonderful opportunity for my wife and I to teach financial literacy to the kids.
Couldn't grandparents do that? I mean, that's why I always encourage them. Like, bring your kids with you. Bring your grandkids to the visit. Actually have them come in and sit down and, sit in the review with us as we're reviewing your strategies, and then go back and talk to them about it. Have these conversations.
100% grandparents could and should do that, because it's one of the best experiences they can do for their grandkids. I take my kids on appointments with me. They'll go on appointments and meet with clients, and it's a great experience for them. And our mutual front row dad friend, John Rulin, right? He took his daughter, I think, on his tour, on a speaking tour with him, and he was talking about how much she had learned on that tour with him and what the questions that she would ask. It's a beautiful thing. Just expose your children to the world we're in of work, finances, investments, and how the world works outside of the very small microcosms they're learning in school.
Yeah, staying integrated, and that's what I think we need to do. We complain about, that, well, they don't teach these things in high school. Well, then teach them. Now, why don't you actually get up and teach your grandkids these things, teach your children these things, and make sure when they actually get that financial legacy that you're leaving behind, that they know what to do with it. They know how to manage it responsibly, because you've been there coaching them through it. And they've been actually a part of maybe even building it along the way. I think that's awesome. And I want to go back. We need to get back to purpose. Something you said earlier really struck me. And that was when you talked about purpose. I mean, and when you found your own purpose. When I talk to different people about this, maybe I know my wife's had this conversation with me. My mom's had this conversation with me, where they feel that they don't have a big enough purpose. They don't have this, they're not trying to change the world. They're not trying to, create a worldwide company or a national company, or create, they're not trying to write a book or create something that seems big enough to them. And I like the way your purpose is. It's just so easy, and I think it's to me, it's kind of eye-opening and really helpful. I mean, for me, I'm always trying to re-identify and identify my purpose. I don't feel like it's ever just concrete and solidified. It's always evolving.
Yep.
And for you, you've created one that can be very permanent. It's just set a great example in all facets of life. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. And well, and I'll tell you that the definition of the words I've wrote, it's a little bit of it's a living document, if you will, because I have added, like, adventure is the most recent word I added to it. So is being that great example in health, fitness, and adventure, right? So I was like, okay, well, I want to show the example of putting myself out of the comfort zone and going and doing things that scare me and are adventurous. And so I've added that into mine. But your comment on, someone feeling out their purpose is not big enough. And
Well, people will they'll come in and we're talking about what your purpose is for retirement. I don't know. I never thought about it before. I mean, I just want to be retired, and then they start thinking about it and like, boy, now I feel kind of empty. Now I don't have a purpose. And it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be meaningful.
It does. And Simon Sinek, and Angela Duckworth, a lot of folks have written about purpose and why, and they'll tell you that usually a purpose is something other than yourself, right? It's not about you. It's about improving the life or doing something for the benefit of another. And that can be one other. It can be millions of others, as some people have their purpose there. But in this man's opinion, if you can use your life to positively impact one other person, then that's a beautiful thing. And if you can go be a shining example and a positive impact on one other person, because you never know what kind of ripple effect that will have out there in the world.
Yeah, and retirees come in a unique place where they've got a lot of experience, they've got a lot of knowledge, they've got a lot to share, and they have the ability to be a retire mentor, if you will, and that can be such a clear and easy purpose. I can see someone implementing it and writing it down right now. But remember, it's in the show notes as you're listening, so you don't have to write it down right now. But
that's right. And there's lots of folks that do that, and that's a beautiful thing, right? That retirees that will mentor others, to previous executives or people that just lived and done something at a high level that others haven't done, and that could really use that help and that guidance.
Well, you said it took you you mentioned this 2-year soul search after you had went to that conference and started thinking about your purpose.
Yeah.
Did you have a process that you went through that, someone else might be able to apply that 2-year soul search? Maybe they're 2 years before retirement, or they're just starting retirement. They go, okay, I don't need to have this figured out and written down right now. I've got some time, and this is what I'm going to do to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I mean, the big part of the process was just slowing down and allocating time to thinking, because we're so busy in our lives. Usually we don't give ourselves thinking time. And so I would take some, dedicated time to just think about what's really important in my life. What is it that gives me energy and fuels me and makes me feel good, and what would make me feel good for the rest of my life. And so I just slow down and kind of think through that, go on walks and, some deep thought time. It wouldn't be all the time. That's why it took 2 years. It wouldn't be all the time. But eventually it started kind of coming to me and coming together. And I started kind of crafting what that statement would look like. And again, when I finally came up with it, it was a little aspirational, because if I was going to look at myself in the mirror back then, I'm like, you are not that guy that's the best example in this area or that. But as the years have gone on, I've started to live more and more and more up to that statement of purpose.
It's got to continue to evolve over time. And what you said there brings me back to something that was said at the last Front Row Dads retreat by Sachin. Sachin Patel had mentioned that we're really human doings for the most of our life. And you look at retirees, they've been a human doing for the last 30 years, but they're really, we're meant to be human beings. And it sounds like you just spent some time being a human being for a couple of years and just being present and just thinking through these things. And maybe that's what really it was that helped you solidify your purpose and take you into this next stage of life.
It did. And now it's a beautiful place to be at, now that I have that in place. Again, it's my compass. It's my true north.
Well, and a big part of that, I know you just love your kids. You've been working on this legacy thing for a really long time. I mean, now you've got the Legacy of Love app, and it's just it's growing bigger and bigger. It's taking on a life of its own. Yeah. But before we get into the app, I just wonder what legacy means to you. as we talk to the families we work with about this, many times they're thinking about it as a financial legacy. They're thinking about what they can give them today that can help them. They're thinking about what they can leave them behind tomorrow that can help them. To you, what does the word legacy mean?
It's the impact we leave behind, right? And that can be a financial impact. It can be how we've taught our children to treat others in the world. It can be the emotional intelligence that we've left behind as our legacy. It can be a lot of beautiful things. It can be a lot of ugly things, right? Some people leave behind a very negative legacy. But for me, legacy is all about leaving a positive impact in others' lives.
Mm-hmm. And how would you say, what do you think the legacy is that you're going to leave behind for your children?
Honestly, the biggest thing is, and it's kind of the reason we chose the name for the app, it's love. It's one word. It's love. I have children my daughter is in Africa right now. She's 16 years old. She volunteered to go to Africa, found the group that she was going to go with, raised the money to go, and went over there to build a school for an orphanage because she cares. She has so much love in her heart. And so that's what I want my legacy be for my children, my family is love, that they see that, I was filled with love, that I left them with love, and that they knew every day that they were loved. So that's the important one for me.
And that's been a big focus of yours, the development of the app, the Legacy of Love app. Can you just tell us how the app works and maybe how you arrived at this place today with the launch of the app here very recently?
Sure. So what Legacy of Love is a parent to child or grandparent to child journaling platform. It's cross-platform, meaning you can do it on website, phone, tablet, Android or iOS, anything right there. And it's a place to capture moments, save memories, leave lessons, document photos or videos, voice notes, voicemails, a way to just basically capture those little moments of life that might otherwise pass with the fleeting time. And I think it's like a modern day digital scrapbook is in essence what it is. It came about as a result of my own journaling to my kids. I've been journaling to my children for almost 16 years now. And I've done it for many, many years. And people had encouraged me over the years to do something with that and build a program. So we spent about the last 18 months coming up with this. And it is very much alive and real and out there right now. We have hundreds of people using it right now and getting many more downloads by the day. It's pretty exciting and it's really cool. Really cool.
There's nothing else out there like it. I've got into it myself. I'm enjoying it. There's a couple things that are on my mind with the app. And one is, what do you think the impact is in people's lives while they're here versus while they're gone?
So let me tell you personally, okay, I'm the creator and developer of this app, and I'm still right now adding entries that I've made from years past to my children. I've made them in a Word doc and then in Evernote, and I'm basically putting those entries now into Legacy of Love. And it is such a magical thing for me to be able to read over the entries that I made when my now 16-year-old daughter was 1 year old and 3 years old, and what I had written about her life and our lives and what was going on there. It is such a cool thing. It's so powerful. And so the impact on your life as you're living is incredible, to go back and relive the moments that were important enough for you to write down and go relive those moments is super impactful. Now, my intent for this, for my children, is that I'm going to give these journals to them when they graduate high school. They've never seen them. They know about them now because I've released the program, but they've never seen any of these. And it was going to be my gift to them at high school graduation. It'll be 18 years of your life through my eyes. And my hope is that
So they haven't seen any of it up to this point.
They've never seen one. They've never seen one.
They know you're doing it. They just haven't seen it.
They now know I'm doing it because they're, a part. This is, we hope to impact millions of people with this program. And so they're very much aware of that and helping in social media and some stuff on there, but they've never seen one entry that I've written. And so my hope is that when they receive those, that it will be, one of the most meaningful things that they've ever received. And that as they grow older and they have their own children, that it'll be kind of like a playbook that they go back to and they look at, wow, what were we doing when we were growing up and what was dad
Oh
doing?
yeah.
And be able to look through that and say, oh, well, my baby's 1, she's not walking or talking or whatever they do.
Yeah.
I always have to look back at the ages. I don't remember how old they were, but they can go back and look through these and see where they were at those stages in their own lives and how I was reacting in those stages of their lives. So
That's what I was telling my wife. One of the things I was most excited about was the timeline feature, right? I mean, you're able to go back and see what's happening at specific times in your child's life or your grandchild's life. And I think, man, if I had that for myself or if I had that for my parents, that'd be so cool to just kind of put them side by side and say, okay, they're exactly 18 months old or that this is their second birthday. Did they eat the cake or did they scream the whole time?
yeah. So that's the cool thing. We created that timeline feature to kind of be like the modern day growth chart, right? Because like when we were growing up, our parents kind of marked our height on the closet wall right there, and they'd write the age and how tall we were, and this is the equivalent of that because now we can, you can choose whatever event is a milestone. And so my 3-year-old right now, it's so cool. His first event is the sonogram 6 months before he was born. Right? We've got his sonogram in there, and the next event is the day he was born, and then he rolled over and then starts crawling, and we got this beautiful visual timeline, and it tells me how old he was at each of those stages in his life because the system automatically calculates that based on their date of birth.
Well, I really liked how you integrated it with the whole family too. You can upgrade to get the family package where, and I'm telling my wife this and she's, I can tell her how excited I am. This is going to be so much fun because, right now we've got, grandma and grandpa on both sides. They're shooting their video, they're taking notes, and it's like a lot of that stuff could get totally lost if they're not putting it all in one place, or it's just going to be a mess to aggregate and get organized. And now we can give them all access to the same place. So every time they're shooting video or writing something down, it's all going to the same timeline.
Yes, I love that. And you're exactly right. And things can and do get lost. I'll give you an example. My 15-year-old son, when he was 3 or 4 years old, he had left me some of the sweetest voicemails. And they were just his little angelic 4-year-old voice and, oh, Daddy, I love you. And I can't wait to go do this or that. And I saved them forever until they were gone. Right. And I don't know where they went or how they were gone, but, eventually phone upgrades or whatever, they were gone. And so now we have a place where that can all be saved and not become just noise out there, not get lost.
Well, and one of the things my wife said, she goes, well, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like, well, we've got to take video, we take phone, we could take voice notes. I mean, you got all these different things that we can do, but it's like, you don't necessarily have to do it. But I think to most, it is going to seem like a quite a time commitment to do all this documenting.
So I'll tell you, when I first started doing this almost 16 years ago, it kind of, when I started thinking about it, I was like, that sounded like a lot of work. And what made me feel like, what, I can live with that was I made a commitment to just write once per month, write an entry per month per child. I was like, what, I can write an entry per month. It'll take me 15, 20 minutes. I can commit to 15 or 20 minutes to slow down and write down some of those memories that had occurred in once a month. And so that's what I've done. I've averaged, once per month over the last 16 years, and that adds up to a whole lot. Now I'm writing more frequently just because time's so fleeting. My kids are older. I'm like, I want to capture all these memories because I know that they're going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
And so but just think, once a month over 18 years, that's a lot that you've documented during that time frame, and it becomes a really beautiful effort and beautiful result that you end up capturing.
Well, another one of my concerns with this, we're so attached to our smartphones today, and I see parents all the time that are on their phone taking video the entire time during, say, the first birthday or the second birthday. They're not necessarily experiencing it themselves.
Yeah.
How do you think? How do you ensure that the documentation that we're doing doesn't take away from the experience that we're having with our children while we're actually here?
Well, it should never supplant that thing, right? The experience is what life is about. It's the connection and the connectivity and the experience. And so, yeah, it should never take over that. And how I've done it is I'll usually go back a day or two or a week or two later, knowing that, oh, I want to remember. Sometimes I'll write down, I need to journal about this thing, right? Because something happened, it was super funny, or a picture we took, and I'll write a little note, journal about this. And I'll go back a week or two later, and then I'll recall those experiences. And it's really cool because when I'm sitting there to, just a quiet time for me and go back and relive those memories and then take the time to write down those memories and then what it meant to me. And that's the super special thing that I feel like is I'm writing down the impact that it had on me as their dad, the experience that I had with them.
Well, I can't imagine. I mean, we've interviewed people about gratitude. This is my theme for this year. If you didn't know this was gratitude. And we had Israel on previously talking about gratitude and writing thank you cards. And I've got to imagine if you're sitting down and you are reliving that experience, you're jotting down what it was like. There's got to be a high level of gratitude that's being created, and it's got to be life-changing for you as you go through this process. I know you had mentioned that your grandmother had kind of jump-started this from, I think it was your grandmother, your mother, your stepmother,
Yeah.
and kind of jump-started this for you. And it could have been a grandmother for that matter that left this gift behind. Tell us about the impact that it had on you and what she did.
Sure. I think it was my 30th birthday that my stepmother, for my birthday gift, gave me a scrapbook of 30 years of my life. And I have it to this day. It's beautiful, leather-bound scrapbook. Open it up. The first picture is my baby picture on it. And then it's just a summary of my life where she had pictures from, she probably entered my life. I was 3 or 4 years old when my stepmom had entered into my life. But there's sort of pictures from family vacations we had taken and camping trips, and she had like handwritten notes in the margins telling the stories of what she remembered and what was important to her about that, and recalling the jokes that we told, or the flat tire that we got, or the time she hooked me in the arm with a fishing hook. It was accidental. But it was all those little stories that were just such a beautiful recollection of my life. And it was, she even had like news articles from when I was in the paper for different stuff. And she had saved all those things and then wrote about what it meant to her and how proud she was. And it was hands down the most wonderful gift I've ever received. We lost her to cancer a number of years later, and she's no longer with us. And this is a living testament to her love and her taking the time to do that. And it was a beautiful thing. And I'm so thankful that she gave that to me.
Yeah, well, she was here to deliver it to you, and maybe nobody knew that she was doing this all along.
Yeah.
We only know what could have happened if she never had the opportunity to hand that to you.
Yeah.
And now you've got this stuff being recorded in an app, but what if you're also doing that in secret? I mean, how do you ensure that the work that you've been putting in all along, how do you ensure that actually gets delivered if something happens to you before you're able to deliver it yourself?
Sure. Well, number one, you can tell someone about it, your spouse or someone that you're doing that. That's one thing. This has got to be designed. We have to figure out exactly how to make it work. But what is in our roadmap is that if someone has in their account settings that if they haven't logged in, or basically if they haven't logged in so many days, weeks, months, or a year, that it would trigger a series of emails that would go out, certainly first to the person that the account holder right there. And if the account holder did not respond, then you could enter in alternate email addresses that the emails would go to notify them of the fact that you had this account at Legacy of Love, and to give access to the account to some of your loved ones there.
Yeah, now I love that idea. I've got a friend that has what he calls a dead man switch set up. So it's basically he gets an email every day. If he doesn't confirm the email, then they send an e-blast out to all the different recipients with letters that he had written for him, including
Wow.
myself. And
So years ago, I was at a GoBundance men's meeting, and we recorded like death videos, 10 minutes
oh my gosh.
in a dark room with a camera and lights, just by yourself, to say whatever you wanted to your family in the event of your death. And I've got this like USB stick in a drawer of mine, so that if I'm ever dead and my family's digging through, it says open in the event of my death.
Well, I think it's a pretty neat idea because a lot of these things get lost along the way, and a lot of it has, just evolved out of technological advances, which some can find intimidating. What if you find yourself and you go, boy, I'm just not that technologically advanced. I just figured out how to use this whole podcast thing. Now you want me to get this Legacy of Love app and figure out how to use it. What would you say to that?
Well, everyone today has one of these, right? So everyone's using their little smartphones or tablets, and it's a pretty simple, pretty intuitive app to use. And most of us are using apps for, whether it's Google Maps or whatever, all these different apps in our lives. So I would, encourage someone to check us out and try it and use it. If it seems too confusing or too overwhelming, then figure out what that legacy is that you're going to leave, right? Whether it's writing letters, go old school, right? Write a letter
Yeah.
a month to your kids or your grandkids, and just start saving them, and,
Yeah.
and just start saving those, and save them, and have them in a place where they can be found in the event of your death.
Yeah,
Because
my wife has been a little bit better at this than I have. She's used Facebook as that recorder for her to type messages up to the kids, and
yep.
hopefully they're recorded forever. But I really love this idea, and so thanks so much for sharing. I know we're out of time. I just want to wrap it up with something that I know about you that is pretty amazing, and that is where you've come from from a fitness perspective.
Yeah.
And I know now. I mean, we did this whole competition, this fitness competition together as part of Front Row Dads.
Yeah.
And I got to watch you work out every single day, and you shared what you were doing. And it was just kind of mind boggling, the things you were doing every single day. And I don't know exactly how old you are today, but
48, or I'll be 48 here in a couple of weeks. So.
so 48 years old, and you're hitting fitness pretty darn hard, but it hasn't always been that way. Tell us where you came from a fitness perspective and where you're at today.
Well, so back in 2012 was probably when as a young man in the Navy, I was always in pretty good shape. As I got married and had kids, let myself just get out of shape, living on autopilot. 2012, had this epiphany and looked in the mirror and said, who are you? That's not who you're meant to be. And so I started getting myself into shape. And so I went from, basically I dropped over 50 pounds of weight in a matter of, I dropped the first 30 pounds within about 6 months, and the next 20 pounds came off in the next year as I really integrated kind of nutrition into it, and just have stayed on a continuous fitness journey. And then in December of this year, I listened to the Audible of Living with the Seal by Jesse Itzler. If you haven't listened to that, get it. It is one of the most incredible Audible book. It's probably the best Audible book I've ever listened to. The story is amazing. Jesse Itzler is a great storyteller. He narrates it himself. But I listened to that and I was like, whoa, as much as I'm doing and as much as I think I'm doing, I'm playing too small. I need to step it up, especially in my fitness. And so I started a journey this year, and I call it the 365 fitness plan. And I committed to work out every single day of the year in 2019. And I was going to do just isometric body weight exercises so that I could do it anywhere, anytime, no matter what. No excuse about not having a gym or anything. And my commitment was to do a certain number of reps per day. And those reps could be push-ups, abs, pull-ups, jumping jacks, squats, lunges, dips, and burpees, right? So it's any combination of those. And started doing 400 a day back in January. February is up to 500, 600 in March. So now in June, I'm at 900 reps a day. By December, I'll be at 1,500 reps per day.
Jeez.
And I'm doing that plus running 10 miles a week. So I'll get at least, 600 miles in by the end of this
Yeah.
year. And that's that's been my journey.
Well, you didn't start by running 10 miles a week, doing 400 reps a day. And especially when I think sometimes we hear that and we go, I give up, and I think for you, you didn't need to listen to the SEAL or that audio book right away. You needed to start somewhere. And so,
it's funny you said that because I look back at an old blog post I had written in 2012 when I started this fitness kind of journey. And at that time, I was doing sets of 20 push-ups, and I was doing great to get 5 sets of 20 push-ups in, right? I was like, okay, I got 5 sets, and now I do sets of 50, and I'll do, but back then I was like, if I could get 20 push-ups in and get 5 done in a day, that was a huge thing for me right there. So now I started like everyone slowly, and in fact, before I started moving push-ups into it, I just started with elliptical. I just got on the elliptical machine for 30 minutes a day. And that made a huge impact in my life, just moving on the elliptical 30 minutes a day. But that started getting me into shape, and it got me active. And I said, well, after that, I'm going to start doing some push-ups and some sit-ups. Let's start with there, and then start doing a little bit more. It's an evolution.
Yeah. Well, as you step into retirement, you find yourself with typically a little bit more time for things that can help improve whatever aspect it is that maybe you'd like to improve. And maybe that's fitness, and it can just start. I just love that it can start so small. I know, for me, it was, I don't have time to go get an hour workout in the gym, but hey, I can get up and run a half a mile in 10 minutes. So I'll just hop up and run a half mile. And the next day it's 3/4. Then it's a full mile. Then it's a 2-mile run and a 5-mile run. It just needs to be progressive, I think.
Yes, it does need to be and consistent, right? Yeah. Progressive. And I think the consistency is the big thing, because so many people will start up and they'll get out of the gates and I'm so charged up and go, and they'll go so hard. And then it's like, they're all burn out. They're like, oh, I can't do that. Start slow, be consistent. And that's how kind of this deal with 400 reps a day going up to 1,500 reps a day. It's a small incremental monthly improvement right there. And the consistency makes all the difference.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for your time today. But I know that this app means so much to you that you had an offer for our fans,
yes,
so that they could get started on it. I mean, I would love it if my parents and my wife's parents, the grandparents in our lives, if they jump on board and they start using the app along with us. Yes. I just think it can just have a huge impact, and it'd be so much fun along the way.
Imagine the ripple effect as tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people start to use this and pass this on for future generations. How much love is passed on, and how much knowledge and family history is passed on. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So it's a free download, a free app. Anyone can use it forever for free. We have upgraded versions that people can use that are feature laden and gives you more features that people can use. For anyone that wants any of our upgraded versions, 20% off of any of the deals we have for using the code Retire with Purpose. All together, Retire with Purpose. Use that code. We'll put it in the show notes here, but that'll give them 20% off for any of our paid plans there.
Awesome.
And where to find it? Legacyoflove.app. So legacyoflove.app.
Well, I'm going to have to get back and call a family board meeting and force them to listen to this first. Then we're going to have a board meeting, and then we're going to go ahead and get that app on everybody's phone, and we're going to put together a plan to start using that thing. I'm so excited to do it, and I'm so excited to see where this takes you in the future. Thanks for joining us, Ken.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.